It's 1987. A 25-year-old kid with absolutely zero experience walks onto Wall Street. And his only real asset? Well, it's this crazy level of confidence, the kind that makes you think he's never faced a single consequence in his entire life. That man was Jordan Belfort, and his story, it's one of the most unbelievable in the history of modern finance.
And what happens next is just mind-blowing. In less than 10 years, he's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, run an office that was basically a non-stop rock concert, sink a super yacht, smuggle bags of cash to Switzerland, become one of the FBI's most wanted, and then, somehow, turn himself into a motivational speaker. The craziest part? Every bit of it is true.
So let's just get one thing straight right from the very beginning. This story is not a how-to guide for getting rich. Think of it more like a giant flashing warning sign about what happens when ambition goes completely off the rails.
So how did this whole thing even begin? Well, it wasn't some grand master plan. It all started with a simple but really dangerous piece of advice he got on his very first day in the business.
Now look, most of us would hear that and think, okay, got it. I need to be knowledgeable, I need to be sure of myself. But Jordan Belfort, he heard something completely different. To him, that was basically a professional license to lie. It was permission to sell a feeling, not a fact. And this was his big aha moment. You see, the market crashes, he loses his fancy job, and he ends up selling these worthless little penny stocks. And in just a few minutes, he makes thousands of dollars. That's when he realizes, wait a minute, Wall Street isn't about charts or smart investing at all. It's just about convincing people to buy a dream. He'd found the cheat code.
And this is where he takes that cheat code and decides to build an entire empire around it. He opens his own firm, calls it Stratton Oakmont, a name so serious and old money sounding that nobody would ever dare to question it, and he starts building his machine.
And that whole machine was built on a very simple crime called a pump and dump. To put it really simply, it's where you and your buddies buy a whole bunch of a worthless stock for, like, pennies. Then you get on the phone and you use every trick in the book to convince everybody else that this stock is the next big thing. Their entire business model was literally a 4-step scheme. It's simple. Step 1, they buy up a garbage stock. Step 2, they sell you, the investor, the dream of a lifetime. Step 3, as everyone rushes to buy in, the price just skyrockets. And step 4, the most important part for them, they sell all of their shares at the very top, making a fortune, while you lose everything. The money started coming in so fast that reality itself just kind of warped. The parking lot filled up with Ferraris. Champagne wasn't for celebrating anymore. It was basically for hydration. Somebody literally brought a chimpanzee to work one day. The rule was pretty simple. When that much money shows up, logic just gets up and leaves the building. But here's the thing. You can't build an empire that big, that fast, without somebody noticing. Just as Belfort was hitting his absolute peak, the authorities were starting to close in. And yeah, this is pretty much where the FBI enters the chat. The absolute pinnacle of his power came with the IPO, the initial public offering of the shoe company Steve Madden. This was his masterpiece. It was all his manipulative tactics weaponized on a massive, massive scale.
See? He had secretly owned a huge chunk of the company's shares before it ever went public. So, when he unleashed his army of brokers on the world, he made a personal profit of $22 million.
And here's the real kicker. He made that $22 million in just 3 hours. Can you even imagine? The office just erupted like they'd won the Super Bowl. The speed and the scale of the fraud was it's almost unbelievable. So at this point, he's not just rich. In his own mind, he's basically a god. He truly, honestly believes he has figured out a cheat code, not just for the stock market, but for life itself. He feels completely and utterly untouchable. But while Jordan and his crew are throwing parties that would make a Roman emperor blush, someone else is taking notice. Quietly, patiently, an FBI agent starts watching. Because let's be real, nobody makes that much money that fast without breaking a few a few hundred laws. His paranoia and his arrogance just send him into this insane downward spiral. He starts smuggling duffel bags full of cash to Switzerland. He completely ignores the warnings from his lawyers, his family, literally everyone. He even sails his brand new yacht directly into a massive storm against the captain's advice and sinks it. I mean, at that point, it felt like even nature was filing a complaint against him. So, how did it all finally come crashing down? Well, when the end came, it came fast. And it led to one of the most bizarre second acts in modern history. Once the FBI really made their move, the entire empire just shattered, almost overnight. His closest friends started wearing wires and testified against him. The phones were all tapped, the accounts were frozen, the party was officially over.
So he ends up in prison, and there he's got no one left to sell to. The applause is gone. So for the first time, he does something different. He starts to write. And the man who built an entire empire on selling fantasies finally starts telling the truth about his life of lies. And this leads to this incredible rebrand. The man who was famous for fraud becomes famous all over again for writing a best-selling book, getting a huge Hollywood movie made about him, and touring the world as a sales guru. He basically just swapped what he was selling, from lies to lessons. So after all of that, the chaos, the crime, the comeback, what is the actual takeaway from this completely wild story? What's the real lesson we're supposed to learn here? Ultimately, I think the core lesson is this. Money doesn't really change you. It just amplifies who you already are. And for Belfort, it amplified his arrogance and his greed. And when your entire life is built on an illusion, you have to remember that eventually, reality always comes to collect.
You know, Jordan Belfort didn't lose because he was ambitious. He lost because he truly believed the rules just didn't apply to him. And if there's one thing a story like this proves, it's that the more spectacular the rise, the more earth-shattering the fall is inevitably going to be.
Which really just leaves you with one final lingering question. We see all the money, we see the fame, and we see the eventual downfall. But when you strip all of that away, what is the true, lasting price of ambition when it's completely disconnected from any sense of morality?